Were you able to get it?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. We have started the recording of the meeting, and my name is Jean Marie Scordino. I am an exercise physiologist, and most of you who've been coming to this have heard me speak before. I kind of do the lead in for each person. We did have one of our physicians who is going to be moving into next year. So I am going to be your speaker for today. I am an exercise physiologist, clinical health coach. I started my career as a University of Missouri football strength coach, and I have worked with people from all different walks of life to all different issues. And I have a passion for helping people to figure out how to make healthier habits, how to find a way to get holistic well-being for themselves, and to figure out to make those small steps for health. If you've heard me speak before, I always talk about movement snacks and moments of health. And I think those are all great ways to look at things. And today in our BayCare Presents, we're going to be talking about a really important concept and how we can look at our emotional well-being, and even more importantly, how we can de-stress for the holidays. The holidays are supposed to be a joyful time. They're supposed to be a time where we're enjoying friends and family and we're feeling uplifted. But a lot of times the season itself causes there to be a lot of issues and a lot of stress for people. So overall, what we're going to do is we're going to look at, a heightened awareness of what are your stressors during the holiday season. So when you can be aware of what stresses you out, then you can come up with some strategies in order to break that cycle or figure out ways to either mitigate or decrease them so they don't escalate up, or avoid them completely. So we're going to manage all of that. The most common definition of stress out there is it's a condition or a feeling that you experience or perceive. And perceive is a big word there, because a lot of times we get wrapped up in our stress over something that's happening, and it might not be exactly what we thought it is, but because of what our perception is, we're making it something that is causing more stress to ourselves. So it is the condition or feeling experienced when a person perceives that the demands exceed what they're able to handle, what resources that they have, and that individual is able to deal with at that time. So that's kind of a big thing, that perception and the resources that we feel we are able to. There's only one thing you can control in this world, and it is yourself when it comes to stress. We cannot get rid of stress completely, and we don't necessarily want to get rid of stress completely. Life would be very boring if we didn't have any stress at all. We would never get things done. We would never have that impetus to kind of want to move forward and do things. So we want to kind of have enough stress that we're kind of engaged and excited. But the problem happens when we get too much stress, or we perceive we have so much stress that we can't handle it. So we can't change the stresses are out in the world for us, but we can change how we respond to them. And we're going to be talking about that. So stress is not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes when it starts to get too much for us, we need to take that first step. We need to break the cycle of allowing our body to kind of keep getting stressed, because when we start to get stressed, we start to get agitated, we start to get anxious, we start to not sleep as well. Sometimes we choose to eat things that are not necessarily so healthy for us, which cause some issues into the body. So I always like to talk about what my favorite first step is to break the cycle, because when I'm
Hey, Jean Marie, I think you're muted. Oh, good.
muted the whole time.
No, you just got muted.
Oh, I don't know how that happened. Okay, well, good. So I'm going to repeat a little bit of this just in case I don't know where I got muted from. So there's that first step to break the cycle. We have an amygdala, and it is in our brain. And when our body perceives that there is a stressor going on, we know that saber-toothed tiger is coming at us, that, we can't get everything done that we need to on our to-do list, or whatever that stressor might be, our body releases cortisol. And when cortisol goes out into the system, it causes a whole host of effects on our body. It raises our blood pressure. It causes our brain to shut down a bit. It stops our prefrontal cortex. So that logical, higher level thinking kind of gets shut down, because at that moment, our body is in the position that we are either going to fight, we're going to run away, or sometimes we also freeze at this point in time, because we just can't seem to do things. And, it's not necessarily that we're going to go running down the street, but a lot of times, have you ever felt that you're under so much stress, you don't even know what to do next? You don't know what that next step will be and how to do that. So my first step that I love to teach people to break that cycle is to take a breath. So I'm going to have you all do that with me right now.
Wait a minute.
I want you to take a deep breath in.
Oh, that's not right.
Brittany, can you help people mute if they need to?
Yes, I'm trying.
All right, so you're going to take that nice deep breath in. Now I'm going to ask you to exhale. Feel that go out. What did you feel when that was happening? Go ahead and do that again. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Did you feel your shoulders rise up and your body get taller as you were doing that breath and then lower back down as you exhaled? Did you feel that you were like a balloon? You could feel your chest expanding and your back expanding. If you're sitting against a chair, you might have even felt a little more pressure on your back as you took a deep breath in. The first one that I mentioned is called vertical breathing, and that's where we're kind of hiking our shoulders. That can become very stressful for us because our shoulders and our neck were not designed to be breathing muscles. So when you're going to be taking this breath that's going to help you, we want to make sure we're taking it down from the diaphragm. So place your hands on the bottom of your rib cage, right where that little V is, inverted V there. And take that deep breath in again, and now feel pressure against your hands as if your rib cage is expanding. What that does is it allows that oxygen to get deep down into your lungs. You're getting more oxygenated blood into your lungs. And then when you exhale, it's getting that oxygen to the working muscles and to the brain, and also getting rid of all the waste products in our body. This is why our breath is so powerful. It's bringing oxygen and nutrients to all the working parts of the body, most specifically the brain. So it's helping you to kind of clear the head out. The other thing it does is it breaks that cycle of that cortisol, and it helps to lower the boiling point. It helps to decelerate all of that, de-escalate everything. The other thing taking 1 to 2 breaths does is it physically separates us from what's stressing us out. So we're taking a moment to step back and distract ourselves, distance ourselves from what's stressing us out, to allow ourselves to calm down a little bit and to have a more rational thought process as we're moving on. So I'm not saying a breath is going to cure everything. What it is it doesn't get rid of all your stress, but it's that first step that gives us that kind of block. It gives that moment of clear-headed thinking, allows us to stop the habit of spiraling into stress and anxiety. That simple breathing helps to incorporate throughout the day, helps us just to kind of settle down some of the things. Over our year, it helps us to decrease our blood pressure. It helps us to have a clearer outlook on what's going on in life. And there's a lot of studies that show that it helps actually with sleeping also, which is the other great time where we tend to clear out the cortisol and let our body get restored. And these are very safe, easy techniques that you can look up breathing exercises on the internet, but it's something that you can do anywhere. You can do it in the car. No one needs to know you're doing it. And it doesn't have to be for a minute or even 5 minutes. It can be 3 to 4 breaths of just breaking away and being able to take that time. So that's my first one. We take over 20,000 breaths a day. So use a couple of them to be mindful for. Make sure you're really flooding your body with oxygen and nutrients to help take that first step to decrease stress and to make your life a little bit positive. So always remember to just breathe. So now that you've all breathed and I've got some oxygen to your brain, which also shows that it makes you more alert to what we're going to be talking about, I want to see if we're going to go straight into what we were talking about. I had a poll and I'm having trouble finding it. So I guess I just won't use it. So what we're going to do now is talk about what are some of the sources of holiday stress we have. You know, what is it that tends to lead us to getting into that stressful situation? You know, there's a lot of things that happen. People tend to get sad at this time of year. They tend to get overwhelmed. They tend to get frustrated. It helps if you can kind of name what you think is going on and what you have. That way you can come up with a strategy to help you. And some of the biggest ones are unrealistic expectations. We have this feeling that everything needs to be perfect, that bigger is always better. We look at the TVs and the malls and everything, and they're just showing us you need to have everything. You need to have 30 people at your dinner table or it's not going to be fun. You need to make sure that you have the best wrapped packages with beautiful bows and high expensive ticket items. Otherwise, it's not a successful holiday. And that's not true. We set ourselves up for failure when we have these unrealistic expectations. There's a lot of people who experience from loss at this time of year. They may have had someone who passed away during this time of year, or they may be dealing with someone who has an illness right now, but they're dealing with loss. And how do you kind of balance those two things of a joyful holiday and the fact that you have this loss and this sadness going on? There's the financial stress. We talked about those unreal expectations. A lot of times we put a lot of stuff on a credit card trying to meet those expectations. So now we're starting to worry about what those bills are going to look like in the new year when that happens to show up. The inability to be with family and friends. You see these big gatherings, and maybe your family doesn't live down south, or maybe you've had a loss, or maybe you just don't even have a large family to get together with anyway. So you're feeling that you kind of don't have that ability to be with them, or they're too far away for you to get to them. The flip side of that is true also, because sometimes there's a little too much time with family and friends. All of a sudden you take all of these people and they all converge on a very small space, and they're feeling very stressed out about having everyone there. And there's so many people around that you can't even catch your breath of what's going on. You become overwhelmed with obligations. There might be this list of to do that we need to do. How am I going to get all of this done? And then we lose sight of what our values and our priorities are. What really is important for us in this season? What is the meaning of this? So there's some strategies that we can work on to kind of deal with that, so we can kind of feel that, figure out what needs to happen. Those unrealistic expectations, we need to take a look at our values and priorities and see what really is important to us and what do we want to make sure that happens. Make sure we're looking at a budget as we're doing this, so that we're not going to create an undue financial burden to ourselves at the end. Some of the best gifts in life are the free things. Create an experience with someone instead of having to buy a high ticket item for them. That inability with friends and family, it's really nice that we now have a lot more digital options. Zoom in and play a game over Zoom with the family that you can't be with, and try and make some connections. Phone calls, doing being able to talk to the family and friends that you don't have. Or maybe you think about saving for the year and figuring out a way that maybe I'm going to not do all the gifts and all the presents and create that experience, and maybe you'll go to some of your friends and family so that you can have, on some sort of rotating basis, being able to visit with them and spend time with them. That too much family and friends, find time for yourself to step away. If you're all staying at the same house, maybe you go stay at a hotel so you have some place to go to get away from the crowds. Or maybe that's not financially something you can do. Find a time to say that you're going to go out and do something alone, and go to the beach or go to a park to take a walk, so that you can separate yourself from that for a little bit, so that when you are with them, you can enjoy that time. And cutting back on those obligations. You don't need to do everything. Figure out what's important to you. And when we take control and we become aware of what it is, we can then start figuring out what's the best thing for us. What is the thing that's causing you stress? When you know that if I am trying to be in the kitchen cooking, and having everyone come in and be putting things in different places causes me stress because I am trying to cook dinner, maybe you ask people very nicely if they will stay out of the kitchen for a specific period of time. Everyone wants to gather in the kitchen. They want to spend time together. But if you set up a little block of time so you could at least get something done, and then allow people to join you, or give them a task to do and set them up in a specific location, that way the area that you want to be walking around in is going to be something that you can do. So you want to figure out what your stressors are so that you can be aware of them. And then determine how your body responds to stress. Some people get sad, get tired. Some people get angry and kind of fly off the handle a little bit. You want to figure out what it is that you get. Do you get nervous? Do you get agitated? I actually get a feeling inside of me when I get overly stressed that it feels like my body is going to explode. Everything is kind of shaking all at once. I just can't even stay in my skin. I'm sure some of you have felt that way. Other of you are going, never felt that in my life. But I find I need to separate myself from people, and I need to just get a couple of minutes of quiet time by myself. Doesn't mean I have to leave the whole situation, but I know when I am finding myself being overwhelmed by a lot, I need to have some physical distance from places so that I can have some quiet time and be able to just kind of de-escalate what's going on in my body, so that I can come back and enjoy. Because if I stay there, it just keeps building, and then I tend to maybe say something I wouldn't mean to, or something kind of starts, you might get angry with someone or get frustrated, and then you're not enjoying the time. So you got to figure out, what is that awareness? We're all different in how we respond to things. So you want to kind of take time and figure out what it is you're feeling and what it is that's causing that stress, because otherwise you can't make the change. So recognize what you can change. Can you change the stressor? I said at the beginning, you can't get rid of stress. It's how you respond to it. But some of the stressors, it's not that you're getting rid of stress, but I can put myself in a different situation, because sometimes we set ourselves up to be in a situation. If you've been invited to 15 parties, you don't have to say yes to all 15. Or you can say yes to all 15, but know that you're going to only spend a little bit of time at each of them. That way you have some downtime to do things. If you are going to have people over for dinner and you have to cook for 30 people, instead of planning that whole meal on yourself, figure out how you can ask people what it is that you want them to bring. And I know for me, I kind of give them some specific things that I want them to bring. That way we don't show up with 15 pies and no green beans and vegetables, because we have to make sure that we're eating healthy during this time. So figure out what the stressors are and figure out if there's a strategy that you can do to alleviate this. If you have a big family and it's hard to buy gifts for everybody, why not do a gift exchange where you all draw names? Or instead of even buying any gifts, do something where you're going to do a task that's going to be for somebody else. So you're going to give back in their name or with them. So come up with something that you can do for an experience and go do that instead. Take the whole family to the beach and build a sand snowman and take pictures around that instead of doing a gift exchange. And everyone brings one piece to put on the snowman. So it might be someone's bringing a hat or a scarf. And then you'll have these pictures and these memories forever. And you could put together a little photo book to remember all of that instead of spending money on a lot of gifts and things like that. So reduce the intensity of your feelings. A lot of times, if we don't step back and figure out a way to de-escalate, the pot keeps boiling and it starts to boil over. So how can I do things to reduce their intensity? I gave you my favorite one first, is taking that breath. My other favorite one is going to take a walk, because when you do something physical, you're able to burn some energy and it allows you to breathe some more oxygen and give you a chance to be separate from the stressor again, so that you can decrease that anxiety. Some people don't always understand that. You don't want to just walk away from someone if you're having a discussion, and all of a sudden, if you just stop and turn away, you're going to cause them a whole lot of stress. But if you just tell them, I just need a moment to kind of collect my thoughts, I'll be back and we can continue this later on. So that way you're being respectful to the person that you might be having an interaction with, but you're still giving your self a chance to go. Or, hey, everything's in the oven. We've got 20 minutes till it goes. Can you stay here and watch this while I go take a quick walk, just to kind of refresh myself? So figure out a way to kind of reduce that intensity and maybe even shorten your exposure to the stress. And that's the same thing I talked about. If sometimes a large family gets to be too much, take a moment to step out. And then, can you devote the time and energy to make the change? Sometimes we don't think about that. We just kind of go, I don't have time. I don't know what to do. The moment is here. And we need to figure out, are we willing to make the changes necessary in order to have that less stress? There are people who just say, oh, woe is me, and they want to kind of keep going in that. They're the ones that we need to kind of encourage to say, hey, there is a different path that you can take. There is resources out there to help you. And let me help you find the resources that you need. Let me help you connect to what you need to do. Let me help you to maybe develop some mutual supportive friendships and relationships, so that they have maybe a support team to talk to. If they're finding that they can't quite get themselves out of it, there's people that they can talk to. Figure out what kind of realistic goals that they can pursue, something that's meaningful, something that speaks to them and speaks to their values. Expect frustration, failure, and sorrow. That is a part of life. And if we have that unrealistic expectation that we're always going to be happy, always going to be up, always going to be positive, whenever the smallest detail doesn't go our way, we tend to have an issue with that. So we need to know that life is not perfect. And even though we burn something at the dinner table, or we forget to buy someone a gift, or we lose at a game, life can still be good. And you need to be talking to yourself in a positive way. We all have that voice that talks in our head. Every one of us, we're not nuts. But that voice is kind of our conscious, our center. And when we allow it to be negative and talk to us that way, it actually promotes us to have bad feelings for ourselves and to look at ourselves negatively. Would you ever speak to your mom? Would you ever speak to your best friend? Would you ever speak to the person you love most in the world with the same words you use to yourself? It's important that we say stop and don't allow those thoughts to ruminate and step back and rephrase what they say. You know, we talk about those positive affirmations. Everyone hears that, oh, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're wonderful. You know, you don't always have to use those kind of words that kind of make your eyes roll back and say, oh, I don't believe them, but I'm going to say them until it happens. But you can do positive affirmations of saying, you know, I got up today and I did the best job I could to make everyone in my life feel happy about this holiday. I spent time in choosing foods so that I could show love with the dinner that I planned. So figure out things you are positive about and things that make you feel good and start speaking to yourself in that positive self-talk instead of the negative self-talk. And that is going to help to turn a lot around for you to make you feel more positive. And a lot of this goes to what's called a thought reframing tool. And Dr. Dreyer came out with this. And I love this quote. And I also love this picture because it just looks so happy. But peace, the peace of mind, is the result of retraining your mind to process life as it is rather than you think it should be. Think about that. Processing life as it is. What's going on around me? Let me be present in the moment. That's being mindful. Let me experience what's going on and be realistic in where I am in life. This is what's going on. I have peace here instead of what I wish it was, what I think it should, or what Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or one of those is telling me life should be. How can I find that happiness for myself? How can I find that peace for myself so that I can experience the joy of the holidays that it should give? And this is not something that's just for the holidays. Every skill I'm going to be talking to you about and we've been talking about is something you can use all year round as you're doing this. You've got to retrain your mind. We tend to be very negative. Research shows that of our thoughts during the day, 80% of them are negative. We need to figure out a way to pause and retrain our brain to think about the positive, to think about the happier moments, to think about the gratitude. And a gratitude journal is a great way to do that. Even if you don't love to write things down, what you can do is just get a little journal and you can put it, you know, at your desk at work or, and it's blue so you can't see very well, your desk at work or your bedside table. And it doesn't have to be writing out things, but you just every day write a couple of things you're grateful for. The first ones are usually pretty easy because we do have a lot to be blessed about. You know, we have homes, we have families, we have food on the table. There's a lot of things that you can just kind of write down. But as you start getting deeper into that gratitude journal, you start being grateful for all the little things, all the little moments that you have. And when you happen to hit one of those stressful days, or when you're feeling kind of lost, or you're missing someone who might not be there, it's a great time to go back and look at that gratitude journal and kind of reread all the things that you put down there. And then you can start to get a fresh perspective of what's going on. And you can see what your life is really like as opposed to what you think it should be. So I'm going to go through some really specific techniques in order to relieve holiday stress. The first is don't succumb to holiday pressures. Don't let somebody else tell you how you need to celebrate the holidays, how you need to do anything. You want to figure out what's important for you and your family and those people close around you. So make a list of the important things and make sure you take care of those, but don't worry about doing all the other things. Don't worry about perfection. Imperfections are where the fun is. That's probably the laugh that 5 years down the road, you're going to say, remember when this happened. It's when those, you know, not so perfect moments occurred are the things that are going to be probably the happiest and funnest memories for you to go back to. Make time for yourself. Make time for you. There's a lot going on now, and there's a lot of demands on your time and your energy. Make sure you're taking time to do the things that are necessary for you. Make sure you're getting the sleep that you need. Make sure you're eating the way you need to eat. If there's certain music you love to listen to, if there's an exercise class you love to go, figure out what's important to you and make sure you're not just swiping those all away because there's too much to do. Figure out every day, even if it's just 5 minutes, to take time just specifically for you. I don't like the word exercise because too many people have too many barriers for it. And I have a phrase that I say, it's exercise is optional. I don't care if you ever exercise a day in your life, but movement is mandatory. Figure out how you can add movement to your day. Being sedentary tends to make sure that we don't have that nice flow of oxygen through our body. We're not getting the nutrients to the working parts and we're not clearing out all the waste products. So if you can find moments of movement, so a movement snack of 2 minutes here, 1 minute here, 5 minutes here, where you're moving your body around, maybe dancing to a Christmas carol or taking a walk with a loved one, all of that is going to help to clear out the cortisol, which affects the body. It's going to help you give you a better positive mindset, and it's going to help you to just feel better because it helps to relieve the tension that we hold in the muscles in our body. You want to make sure you're eating well. The holidays is a time where there's a lot of really fun food to be eating. And you want to make sure that you don't deny yourself of some of the spectacular things, but that you're not just overindulging on too much that you shouldn't be on. Because when that happens, that tends to bring up our stress levels because we're usually eating more sugars and fats, and that affects our body. So I like to say, indulge in the extraordinary and avoid the ordinary. So something that you can get any time of the year, walk past that. But if there's something that's extraordinary and you're at a little party, take a taste of it because you'll wonder what it was and you'll feel like you've deprived yourself if you haven't. Another little tip is before you go someplace, maybe you eat a light, healthy snack so that you're not starving when you get there and end up eating things that you might not have eaten before. But I always like, again, taste that extraordinary food, but kind of walk past the ordinary. Plan for mindfulness. Be aware of what's going on around you. Savor the moment. So when you are eating the food at a Christmas party, that you're tasting it, that you're smelling it, that you're not just eating for sake of eating, that you're walking around and you're enjoying some of the lights that are going on and some of the decorations that people put on, that you're taking a moment and just enjoying nature and being able to know what's going around you. And that's really all mindfulness is. It's not that you have to take an hour and do any sort of specific training. It's being present in the moment and being aware of what's around you and using your senses. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? What does the air on my skin feel like right now? What does the air feel like? Even in Florida, we have people who are having fires right now. So we're hearing so you can smell the fires out in the community. So figure out what it is that you enjoy and figure out a way that you can then be mindful of that. I was trying to mute that person, but I can't find them. The next thing is to volunteer. Give back to somebody else. In America, no matter how poor off we are still better than so many people in the world. I always liked when my children were little, there's always someone who has more than you do. There's always someone who has everything going on and has all of this stuff. But in life, there's also someone on the other side of you also who always is having a rougher time, who always is in more of need. And if we can give of ourselves to help that person who is in need and give back, it just comes back to you tenfold. I have never volunteered for something and haven't felt like I haven't gotten more back in return than what I've been able to give back. And when we can have a heart of being a volunteer to give back to our fellow man, that helps us to feel better about ourselves because it does release a host of happy hormones into our body to make us feel more positive. So especially during the holiday season, there are lots of opportunities for you to be able to get out to volunteer and give back and get into nature. Research shows that just being around greenery and being in an outdoor area with lots of oxygen and airflow is a positive thing that helps to decrease our stress levels. Just the contact of the wind on our skin helps to give us a relaxation feeling. So make sure that you're taking care of all these things. And most importantly, remember, just breathe. Worst case scenario, you don't know what's going on, you're not sure what's going on, you just feel stressed, step back for a moment and take a couple of breaths. There's a lot of places for you to go to help. Every company has an EAP program. This is completely confidential, and generally most companies, you get 6 free visits for something going on. This does not have to be a full-blown crisis situation, but if you need somebody to talk to or you're looking for specific strategies for you, make sure you reach out to your EAP program. Your doctor, especially your primary care physician, really is your best first line of defense if you're feeling that you're having a lot of stress issues and you're feeling that you need to possibly see someone up the chain to a psychiatrist or that. Talk to your primary care physician because they're going to be able to help you with a lot of things. There are counseling, mental health professional support groups out there. If this is a time of year where you have lost a loved one, a lot of churches and other organizations have support groups where you can have time to be with somebody else who is going through a similar situation, and that you can have someone to be able to talk to who can empathize with you and then help you find some more strategies. Your church, your synagogue is another fabulous place for you to get help. And if you are in a crisis situation, please do not hesitate to reach out or text to the new number of 988, which is the 24-hour National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You can call or text and someone will respond right back to you to be able to give you the care and the help that you need, because you are worthy and there is a path and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. My holiday list for you. Don't just buy presents for people. Be present in the moment and be there for them. Don't just wrap gifts, wrap people in a hug. Give people love. Give people some physical appropriate touch so that you know that you're connected to them. Don't just send gifts, send your love. Write them a letter. Show them that you care and that you are there for them. That person that you might think of that doesn't have anyone around, or someone you know just lost someone, reach out to them. Shower them in love. Bring them a cake or some cookies, to be there with them, and maybe take them out to watch some of the lights and walk through Largo Park or one of the other great areas that have some different areas, to do something physical and just to get them out of their own little circle. Don't just shop for food to make your table have the best spread. Donate to those who are in need. Don't just make the cookies, make the memories. Do the things that 5 years down the road you're going to be saying, remember when we did this. And don't just hang lights, be the lights. The world is too dark, and each one of you can be a beacon and a light to be able to help the others also have a happy holiday. So thank you so much for listening to me. I hope that you got at least one little strategy out of this. And those of you who are suffering and dealing with a lot of stress, I hope that you can reach out to somebody so that you can get even a deeper connection for help. I'm going to stop share. I think I'm going to leave this up for a little bit because I think it's just a fun little list and people like that. We will be sending this out for you so you can share it also. Does anyone have any questions? Brittany, can you stop the recording?
Yes, I don't see any questions in the chat. There were a few comments.
All right. So I'm going to